Hello y'all, this is Louie, and welcome to a special exploration-based Retrosaurus. This will be quite different from our usual style, as this game isn't exactly a retro game, though it is debatable as the original just turned 10 years old this summer. Similarly, I won't be examining this game the way I typically have done in the past. Instead, I want to take some time to talk about the world of Xenoblade Chronicles, Definitive Edition, as I feel like I've been living in it for the past month now. After spending over 80 hours in the main campaign with an additional 12 or so in the epilogue, Future Connected, I can honestly say this is my favorite game world to explore. Even after playing this game on 3 separate consoles, with 2 distinct art styles, the sheer scale and size of this world never ceases to amaze me. No other game has ever made me feel so immersed and invested in its world, nor really given me such a feeling of insignificance compared to my surroundings. Even on the Wii, which was notably underpowered compared to other 7th generation systems, this world was breathtakingly beautiful and expansive, and the Definitive Edition breathed even more life into it with updated visuals and music. So join me as we explore the sights and sounds of the vast world of Xenoblade, as I show off some of my favorite locations in the game. Although I won't be really focusing on the story nor the characters during this video, the locations may give away some story beats if you have not already completed the main game or its epilogue. Additionally, I will be using specific party combinations to explore these areas, so that will spoil all 7 characters in the game, so keep that in mind before you continue. Our first location is the most recognizable in the game, as it has been featured in the Super Smash Bros. Series since Shulk's introduction with Smash 4. The Gower Planes is located on the Bionis leg and was the first real wow moment of the game for myself as well as many other players. After climbing up the knee of the Bionis, you get funneled through a path of large walls on each side that build up a sense of anticipation for the big reveal. Unlike Colony 9 and Tephra Cave before, both of which are very large and expansive in their own way, the Gower Planes is the first location that really showcases the grandiose scale of the world. From the moment you step foot on the plains, you are greeted by seemingly boundless grassy fields teeming with wildlife, with no sign of a Homs or settlement of any kind. Unlike Colony 9, there is very little in the way of technology or civilization present, except for a few markers to guide you along the way and a small refugee camp off to the side. It's here you start to see your relative location compared to other parts of the Bionis body, as well as the Mekanus, ever present and looming in the distance. Now this footage was captured well into the game, so depending on where you are, things may appear different, especially in the sky. And speaking of the sky, the day and night cycle along with the different weather conditions give each location of the plains a unique mood and feel. The music also cycles with different night and day music, with the former being one of the coziest themes in the game. Our next stop is the Mekanus capital of Agnaratha, which we sadly only get to experience once throughout the course of the game. Unlike any location found on the Bionis, Agnaratha is filled to the brim with metal structures and technology to further distinguish it from the organic and natural feel of Bionis. There is a more somber and somewhat violent feel to it, as mindless mecha and drones and mass-produced faces roam about the empty city. Due to the events that transpired prior to the start of the game, the capital was abandoned by the native Machina, many of which who took refuge on the Fallen Arm. There is a palpable sense of sadness and loneliness felt as you walk through the town, with not a single friendly NPC in sight. The closest we get to any NPC-like interaction are the cold, emotionless terminals in the data center, which are only there to order the destruction of various rogue mechon found scattered about. The buildings all stand empty, slowly rusting and decaying over centuries following its abandonment. There really isn't another place like it in the game, even compared to other Mekanus locations. I only wish you could revisit the area with a lessened enemy presence, as it's really hard to take in all of your surroundings without being spotted by a Mechon and having to fight or run away. Moving back over to the Bionis, we find ourselves at the fully renovated and rebuilt Colony 6. When you first visited this settlement, it had been razed and decimated by Mechon, leaving most of the colonists missing or assumed killed. You are eventually tasked by Charla's brother, Juju, to rebuild the colony throughout your playthrough. This included gathering tons of materials and inviting NPCs from every major location in the game to the town to help with rebuilding. This was easily my favorite part of the game, as you had some choice in who you invite to settle the newly rebuilt town, forcing you to explore and talk to everyone you meet along your journey. This unification would be the shining beacon of hope for the new world, as it slowly turned into a melting pot of races from the Bionis as well as the Mekanus. Now, I typically don't want or need direct sequels to a game, and as I have not finished Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I would love a proper return to this world to see how life has progressed after the events of the main game. The Future Connected epilogue gives us an idea of how one part of the world is getting on, but it takes place in a new location and left me with more questions than answers. Next up is one of the most surprising locations in the narrative, the fallen arm of the Mekanus. Yes, the same arm we see the Bionis hack off its opponent in the opening of the game. Now, when I first played the game, I wasn't exactly sure if we would get to explore much, if any, of the Mekanus itself. And I surely never considered this to be among the locations in the game. The fallen arm is home to many of the remaining Magna survivors after they fled the Titan and created a new, isolated village to escape all the violence of the outside world. This area has our first proper introduction of the Magna, who until now we were not aware of their existence, as the Mechon were assumed to be the only life forms present on the Mekanus. Although the area is not very big compared to other locations, it is quite diverse, having beaches, plains, and organic material mixed in with the mechanical remains. This is the first time we get to see the ocean of the world up close, as until now we've only really seen it from up high on the Bionis. The arm is likewise covered with creatures that seem to have originated from both Titans at least at some point, further expressed with several Homs living alongside the Machina in their village. It may not be the largest location in the game, but the landscape and inhabitants of the arm allude to the past where the denizens of the world all lived together in peace. While it's not part of the main game and doesn't have the same sense of scale as some of the other locales, the Bionis Shoulder is reminiscent of the Fallen Arm in some regards. It is one of the few remaining parts of the Titan after its complete destruction at the end of the game. The story does go out of the way to explain the reason why it's still floating high above the clouds, though I still feel like it was simply so they didn't have to show the state of the new world below. Actually, this area is based on a beta area from the original game that you can access through hacking, so it was really cool to see it return after all these years. As I said, it was reminiscent of the Fallen Arm. It similarly is quite small in comparison and even reuses an important area from the main game, Alchemoth, the home of the Hyentia. I mainly like this area as it's the first bit of the post-game world that we get to see, and even includes the difficulties presented by the forced unification of all the peoples in the world in the narrative. Now, I said I wouldn't touch upon the story that much, but I honestly wish they would have taken more time to explore this concept in the storyline, as I felt it was a bit too inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. Aside from Alchemoth, which we do get to see in a more dismal and dilapidated condition, the area is completely new, making it somewhat exciting to explore and piece together its place in the mythos of the story. And finally, easily my favorite place on all the Bionis, Magna Forest. It's not the most unique pick, but I can't deny on how interesting and lively this locale is. Magna Forest is home to the Nopon, and therefore home to the best boy and pineapple cosplayer Ricky, the hero pawn of this year. The area is very reminiscent of prehistoric jungles from popular media, with many dinosaurs and prehistoric animal-inspired monsters roaming throughout it. There are waterfalls, rivers, dense forests, lush flora, you name it. The forest even serves as one of the hub areas in the game, as you're able to access several important locations during the story via travel through it. The monsters are gigantic and occasionally frightening in comparison, which is kind of hilarious as the only sentient creatures living in the forest are the small furball Nopon. Like everywhere else in this game, there is a day and night cycle here, though I prefer the night aesthetically. The dark forest is lit up by many lanterns and natural ether deposits whose glow illuminates your path as you make your way on many a fetch quest, and there are seemingly an unending supply of those in this game. If I had to pick any place to live, I'd pick Magna Forest, and I'd attempt to make friends with the dinosaurs, though I'd probably get eaten by one of their 2 mouths in the process. Now I know there are other areas in the game I could have touched upon, and I could have talked all day about it, but I want to kind of keep this short and concise and to the point. Honorable mentions going out to Aerith Sea, home of Alchemoth, and the central factory of the Mekanus. Those are two areas I would have liked to explore, but given where I am in the game, I wouldn't have been able to get back to them. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed our little journey throughout the world of Xenoblade Chronicles. This game was such a pleasure to experience once again, and I can only hope to convince more and more people to play it, so I can get a direct sequel with a more satisfying story after being underwhelmed by Future Connected. But let me know what you think in the comments below, as this is a bit more experimental in terms of Retrosaurus. I do have more plans for Xenoblade content in the pipeline, so make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with the channel. Additionally, make sure to check out the rest of the main series of Retrosaurus, which is supported through Patreon. There's a link in the description. And again, thank you so much for watching. My name is Louie, and I hope to see you next time here on Retrosaurus.